the tragic death and case of Brianna Aguilera, a police department fumbling the investigation, a family reeling for answers. Next on the conservative revolt, we'll discuss. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. I'm John Aguilera. The tragic case of Brianna Aguilera, and this is a case that has gained national prominence. It's grown in popularity due to the nature of the case. It is a case that there's so many questions still yet to be answered. A family grieving, searching for the truth. They hired a high-priced attorney to help aid them in the investigation, and it's astonishing the findings of the police department. And if you're not familiar with the case, let me catch you up to speed. Brianna Aguilera was a 19-year-old girl originally from Laredo who attended Texas A&M University and died under some questionable circumstances. She fell to her death on November 29th, 2025, for a few days after Thanksgiving, or a day after Thanksgiving, from a high-rise apartment building in Austin, Texas. It's called the Real Apartments. And let's get into the findings or the lack of findings. There's a lot of missing information that came from the attorneys, from police, and the attorneys and the family provided more information, which is that clash in information and what was overlooked by police is all the questions that are coming out of this particular case. And let's get into the missing information part. And for that, we have to get into the timeline. The police timeline and what the family's putting out are completely different things. And it shouldn't be so. It should be one particular narrative, and everything should be answered, but it should be clear cut as to what happened that night. So why is the family disputing the findings of the police? And that's it. That is the big question in this case. That is the clash that is happening. And we got to start off with what the police is saying themselves. And the police, Austin Police Department, in this particular case, the lead detective Robert Marshall, they come out and speculated that this was a suicide. That they found a suicide note in her deleted notes in her phone, and that's how they determined that she, in fact, committed suicide. The dispute comes from the family because of all the missing information and missing pieces. So let's discuss the timeline that the police gave. And it's perplexing to see, and I'll put the police press conference in the description box. It's perplexing to see how this guy jumps back and forth. Like it's kind of hard to tell, like, what is he really saying? And when you see both sides in all the clips, everything's going to come into play because I'm not going to say withheld information, but he didn't clarify a lot of things in his timeline. The police timeline starts at 12:46. This when they're already fielding the call that there was a unresponsive female laying on the ground on Rio Grande Street in front of the apartment building. And that in itself is perplexing, and that's why I don't question the family for questioning the police. I would, if I was in the same situation, I would feel the same way, because he starts his timeline when she's already fallen. So what happened prior to that? That was in the press conference. So he starts 12:46. She fell to her death. They claim because of the findings that it was a suicide. 12:56, she is pronounced dead. He makes contact with the building staff at 6 o'clock in the morning. 10 o'clock in the morning, they finally get access to all the videos. Obviously, that takes time. They go through the videos. 12, I believe, 50 something, 12:57, they make contact with the people, the occupants of the apartment. They speak to these people. At 12:15, they made a call to Austin Police Department that Brianna Aguilera was missing. They would try to find her. They couldn't find her. He spoke to police. At 4 o'clock p.m., they finally made notification with the mother. At around approximately 2 o'clock in the afternoon, the mother's calling Austin PD for information. That is not verbatim, but it's more or less of the timeline that he gave. And then when he's done with that, he jumps back and he says that she attended a tailgate at the Austin Rugby Club and that she became so intoxicated that she was asked to leave. Made it to the apartment building at 11:30. A big group of people left the apartment. 12:40. No, I beg your pardon. At 12:30, a bunch of people leave the apartment. 12:43, she borrows a phone to make a phone call to her boyfriend. They have a 1-minute argument. She returns the phone, and then, according to them, jumps to her death. Problems with that. It's a lot of problems with that timeline. And before I get into the issues, also the response of the police department questions the fact: are they really looking for the truth, or they just want to come to a conclusion? Because as the attorney in the case hired by the family, Tony Busby, the name might ring a bell due to the whole Shannon Sharp shit fiasco and how Shannon Sharp was crying about him. So he is a well-renowned attorney, and he made this point, and I want to second that. Nobody's implying a conspiracy. Nobody's implying that some power at B wants this to go away. That's not what he's saying. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is there is a lot of problems with that. The police department's position is to be very defensive to any questioning at all. And how the chief of police in her opening statement, how she moms the police department and the statement that she makes, that is extremely perplexing to me. But I'll let you watch this real quick.
Son, and I cannot begin to imagine the pain that Brianna's family is feeling. As a parent, none of us want to contemplate the loss of a child, and again, my heart aches for them. Before I turn this over to our lead detective, I want to be clear about a few things. It is not common for a police department to speak publicly about a death by suicide, but inaccurate information has circulated and been reported, and that has led to additional harm of innocent people, bullying included, and their families. There have also been statements suggesting the police have failed to do our jobs. Those statements are not accurate. I understand how grief and the need for answers can raise intense emotions and many questions. But sometimes the truth doesn't provide the answers we are hoping for, and that is this case. Please know that careful investigations take time. We must interview witnesses, collect evidence, and piece together facts. Releasing partial information too early can jeopardize the integrity of that case.
As you can see, extremely defensive posture that she takes. Once people lead with, "Oh, I'm a parent too," and this and that, you do not. Let me put this out there. She does not know how this woman feels. You do not know. Stop. You do not know. Your kids are living. You can't equate the severity of the situation. Your kids are alive. Her kid is dead. So that we as parents, we understand trying to mom the situation. Get the fuck out of here with that. Your kids are alive. So no, you don't have a clue how this lady feels. I don't have a clue how she feels. Unless that's happened to you, you don't have a fucking clue how she feels. So for her to tack that on as, well, they're grieving, and grief can bring out these emotions. Shut up. Back to the problems in the case. The whole hanging up the phone, and I'm gonna say what is not explained, and then I'll get into what the attorneys and all the information is put out, the subsequent information that has been put out. So what happened from 12:44 to 12:46? He says she gave the phone back to the person who she borrowed the phone to, and then next thing you know, she was on the ground. No explanation. Did she borrow the phone? Was the person asleep? Was the person awake? What was the situation behind that? Then here's something that I have a real problem with. She was heavily intoxicated, as reported before, that she was so intoxicated that she was asked to leave the Austin Rugby Club. If she was extremely intoxicated, any of us has been extremely intoxicated knows how does it would have been a very sloppy fall. It would have been hard for her in a drunk state of mind to climb that railing. The railing, according to the attorney, is 44 inches, and she was 5'2". I think 44 inches sounds a little bit kind of short, but that's what they're reporting. That's another problem that I have with the police timeline. They do not give you a layout of the apartment. They don't go into details into how many rooms on the apartment, how big the apartment was, the railing, any scuff marks. There's trees in front of the building. Did she hit a limb on the way down? Well, like the trajectory of the fall, is it consistent with being pushed? They don't no specifics. No specifics. The attorneys say this was a rushed press conference. And despite how rushed it may be, you still got to present some sort of details to explain the findings and to explain your case thoroughly. I'm not a homicide detective, but I got a correctional background, and when we have incidents and stuff like that, we have to provide the facts of the details of what happens. And some of the details in the case are important to determine what happened in the absence of cameras and other sort of evidence. So that to me is very perplexing that they don't put out detailed information about the case. Maybe they don't have it, but in my opinion, they should have that information. Did anybody see her fall? Did anybody hear anything? Was the glass on the door like soundproof? Like anybody can think about the Ace Ventura. And then this is is not saying that this is funny, but when he sliding the glass door back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and he determined that there's no way that the neighbor could have heard the person fall unless Roger Pedactor jumped off, and then what did he do? He jumped back up and closed the door behind him. There's no way. He says there's no way that neighbor would have heard him fall. And he asked the neighbor, "Are you certain?" He says, "Yeah, I'm sure." So you get the point, and this is gonna make sense because the attorneys in their press conference spoke about the neighbors across the hall. I guess the door in front of them heard people running back and forth and heard what it seemed like at the time an altercation or problems. That was not mentioned on the police timeline. Like if you want to go back and watch it, you can see it, but pretty much the crunch version that I gave, it's what they said. No details. No details. Just a rush conclusion. They don't talk about what happened at the Austin Rugby Club. And here's a question that I have that I feel that nobody's asking. Who gave her all this alcohol? Who gave her all this alcohol? And I know people say, oh, well, there was a bunch of other kids there. They just gave her shit and fake IDs and this and that. Regardless, why did this man not go back and speak to the people who were at the rugby club? Why do they not go back to the rugby club and speak to the staff there, speak to the people that went? Anybody and anyone that can establish a well-defined timeline, a well-defined events of what happened there today. Her phone was missing. It's been reports from what I read and what I heard on a press conference that it was in a wooded area by the rugby club. And some reports it was found in a friend's purse, and some that it was there pinging there on the ground. What? I understand she was intoxicated, but man, I find it hard to believe that a grown woman, especially a young one, no matter how drunk she is going to run around without her phone. I find that hard to believe. That mother states that the phone was on Do Not Disturb, and they had a clear-cut rule that they never put their phones on Do Not Disturb. That in itself could be many things. I'm not going to read too much into that because it could be anything. It could be anything. Could be anything when it comes to that. Still, there's so many things that were not asked. Also, all these reports that are coming out about people hearing things and people this and people that, and the fact that they question these people the next day at 1 p.m., almost a whole 24 hours, because she was pronounced dead at 12:56 a.m. that no, November 29th, 2025. And it takes them almost a whole 12 hours to talk to the people involved in the case. That to me, like, that's a long time for, if something happened, it could have been cleaned up. That's more than enough time without feeling any pressure that, hey, they're gonna come knocking through the door. They're knocking at the door and you caught the crime scene. Also, they're determining the case, the not the case. They're determining the cause of death based on the note that she left on her phone. And I'm like, what if the autopsy takes 60 to 90 days? What if after the autopsy comes out, if it comes out that she was beaten over the head, or she was that she was obviously murdered, and you didn't talk to witnesses, you didn't talk to the people in the, they said they interviewed the people in the apartment 12 hours after the fact. But they didn't question them when their mind was fresh about, were you asleep? Were you there? Like, what happened? How do you not know she left the apartment, that she wasn't there? And I'm gonna get into that on the attorneys, because I want to split this. I'm going over what the police said and the lack of answers, and then I'll get into what the attorney's saying and the information they provided. So you're gonna be playing catch up essentially when, if something comes out, and now you're gonna have people 30, 60 days after the fact with, I don't recall, I was drunk that day, it was 2 months ago, I don't, and it's a fine way to get out of things if there's any foul play. It's just perplexing to me that they did not do their due diligence. And I'll make this a segue into to what the attorney's press conference. On the attorney's press conference, they revealed an individual who said he was on the street, and he actually made a TikTok video about it, talking about it, that he heard someone get off me. He heard an altercation, yet this man was not interviewed. That and I'll play the video for you in a minute, so you know what I'm talking about. And that this individual wasn't questioned by police. I find that perplexing. Why overlook him? Only they can answer that. And I say to myself, okay, if you think, oh, it's just some guy on TikTok trying to generate traffic to his page, or is not really, okay. If this is me using common sense, this is just me to dismiss that particular individual. I'm gonna walk to the street on a Saturday night. Obviously every single night is not the same. Some nights are quieter than others, but okay, to equate to recreate that night, at least I'll go there on a Saturday night, like that day, Saturday morning, and I will go and tell two other officers, hey, go to the 17th floor and get in a make believe argument, and I'll see if I can hear you from the street. So that's something simple that they can do. That's not something that is complicated. It's going to take a lot of money. Hey, you get with the shift sergeant. Hey, let me borrow 2 guys for 10 minutes. Let's go up to the crime scene. You do this. You do this. I don't hear anybody. They're up there. Hey, you guys are talking. You guys are, what's going on? Oh yeah, man. We're arguing back and forth. Shit, I can't hear you. You dismiss that guy right away. If you don't even want to talk to the guy, you dismiss him right away. That's something that could easily be done. Easily be done. And you dismiss that, all the questions, you dismiss a lot of that. But now let's get into what the attorneys are saying, what the family is alleging, and you're gonna see both coins, both sides of the coin. So the attorney's side of the coin, the other side of the coin that I was alluding to, the attorney's description of what happens and the information they put out. And I'll let you hear Tony Buster's introduction to the press conference.
We were asked by these parents who love their daughter to find the truth of what happened to her. They didn't feel like they were getting thorough information from the Austin Police Department. And despite what the detective said yesterday, or maybe implied yesterday, it's kind of hard to figure out what he was saying. This is very much an ongoing investigation. I've been around a long time. Good investigations lead to conclusions. Bad investigations start with a conclusion, and then they try to support the conclusion through the investigation.
As you can see, he says the family's looking for the truth, and many of us that are interested in this case, that's what we're looking for as well. It's just the truth. To me, honestly, the draw to the case, I bear no relation to her, but I do share her last name. And I have a daughter similar in age to her, only 3 years apart, younger. So I guess you can't help but to wonder, if you're in that situation, how would you feel if that was going through your mind? What would be going through your mind, or what have you? That's my draw to the case. And it's just sad that the mother, Stephanie Rodriguez, finds herself, and the entire family finds themselves in this situation. But as he said, they're looking for evidence to support their conclusion. They're not trying to get to the specific of the case, to the truth, what really happened. They made a determination that she was suicidal, and then she carried out her suicide ideation, and the story, without thoroughly investigating the case. And that's the problematic part. That's the part that the attorneys are trying to get to. And they put out information. Detective mentions that she was suicidal, that she mentioned to people that she had suicidal tendencies and she wanted to carry out these tendencies that she had. Attorney Tony Busby, and it's another clip that I'll share with you as to what he said, alludes that she was just talking as if, when you're having a bad day and like, man, I'm having a bad day, like F my life. Stuff like that. Like, as he called it, silliness like that. But I'll let you hear what he has to say about it. Then we'll react.
He claims she made suicidal comments. He told us in the Zoom call she made suicidal comments. You know what he was talking about? The other day, when I was talking to a friend the other day, I said, man, you're going to make me jump off a bridge. That's what he's talking about. Silliness like that. He later claimed she was making those kinds of statements on the day or the night that she died. If that's the case, why did their friends leave her out on the balcony by herself? If that's true, because it's not true.
But as you saw in the clip, what he's alluding to, the example that he gave, that he was talking to a friend, he's like, man, I feel like jumping off a bridge. She was saying stuff like that. She wasn't saying, and I know a lot of people can say, well, you don't know, people could be talking, they could be really talking about how they feel. And that's a perfectly understandable position to take, that you never know, because I've been close to a couple of suicides in my life. I had two neighbors. One was a girl that was being bullied at school and she shot herself. And I didn't know the girl very much, so I can't speak on that very much, but seemed like a perfectly normal girl. Shot herself. The next one, it was pretty sad. The one was a neighbor in front of me, the other one was beside me. This woman hung herself. She was a mother of 5. And I guess the marriage was in trouble. I knew the guy well. I knew her a little bit, and she was a fiery person. She was a person that didn't take shit from anybody. She was a tough person. The person that I never would have thought that could have happened. And she hung herself. Mother of 5. True story. So, you know, to determine if a person is suicidal or not is a difficult thing. It's a difficult thing. In my line of work, I was a part of one suicide, and this guy was a Sureño gang member, not necessarily a weak, vulnerable person mentally. And this guy hung himself. So it's kind of hard to determine that. To say, well, a person is suicidal. And high profile suicides of celebrities that we known about, when people say, oh, they got nothing to lose, why would they do that? This and that. We never know. So when it comes to these cases, I understand the skepticism of people, the police, and the family questioning the case and saying that she's not suicidal, because sometimes it's hard to see it. But the fact of the case is the lack of information and the lack of due diligence by police. Determining if she's suicidal or not, that's a hard thing to do. That's a hard thing to do. Chester Benson was on vacation, went home and killed himself. He was on vacation. He was seen smiling with his family a few days before that. So that's a very hard thing to establish. I mean, I know the attorney's trying his best to explain the thing since police couldn't, but that's a very hard thing to establish, in my opinion. The Austin Rugby Club. The attorney, Tony Busby, did allude to that. At the end of the press conference, police said that she punched the girl that was trying to help her, and they went home after that. The attorney saying there was a physical altercation. An altercation to me means back and forth. Why would he phrase it like that? Because I'm inclined to believe if he's phrasing it like that, it had to have been an altercation. He also alludes that that particular person was with her in the apartment that night. She was one of the 3 girls that was left with her that night. Brianna Aguilera made the 4th. And according to him, this was not brought up. As a matter of fact, he said he had and I'll put both press conferences in the description box so you guys can see it for yourself. He said that this wasn't brought up. And me looking back at the press conference from the police, they only mentioned it because they were asked about it by reporters in the end of the press conference. And I'm like, isn't that a pretty important thing to look into? Somebody who you just had a physical altercation with is left with that person in the same location, and the other person turns up dead, and you don't think that person could become a suspect because you read a note on her phone? Tony Busby, he tries to explain that too. She says that he states that she took an essay, that she wrote an essay, that it wasn't necessarily a suicide note. It was an essay that she wrote, and that the previous semester she took creative writing, and that was part of her creative writing. That's how he explained it. He says that it wasn't a suicide note. It would be great if they put out the contents of that note, at least to the attorneys, to somebody, so they can explain that away. But despite the fact, a person that just was in a physical altercation, and that's not important to them. That's perplexing. I mentioned this earlier in the podcast. The gentleman that made the TikTok about what he heard, this individual, Tony Busby, spoke to him. They haven't spoken to him. Why? If somebody's making an allegation that is poking holes into your theory, into your findings, you need to investigate it. Why? What about the witnesses across the hallway who heard running and what it appeared to be an altercation. They put all this information out in the attorney's press conference. All this information was laid out. Her wallet is still missing. They did not mention that in the police press conference. Why? Why? The trajectory of the fall. They made no details about that. And obviously, if you're pushed, there's gonna be you're gonna fall a certain way, you're gonna land certain ways. What expert did they consult to analyze the trajectory of the fall? The layout of the apartment, Tony Busby speaks about that at length. He explains that it's a very small apartment, 2-room apartment, and the balcony is super small. That there wasn't even no furniture, no nothing. That it would have made it hard due to her height to climb over the railing. Why police did not bring this up? Why did they not give specifics about that? Is extremely troubling to me, and that's the bigger part of the case. That's one of the things that perplexes me about the case. 12:44, 12:46, she's dead. 2 minutes. So, what happened? To me, it's just, man, to 2 whole minutes. Like I understand it was a small apartment, but like, how do you, like, I don't understand how could it happen so fast? I mean, it would have been like a self-inflicted gunshot to the head. I can understand. You know what I mean? You hung up the phone, gave the phone back. 12:45, picked up a Glock. Boom. But she jumps off in 2 minutes. 120 seconds. Pretty fast. Then the police says that these 3 women that were left in the apartment with her were asleep. So how did she get the phone? Did she wake one individual up? I'm going to borrow your phone. First and foremost, and I want to do a little poll here, if you can put it in the description box. How many of us phones are unlocked? So she had to, if these people were asleep, hey, I need your phone, unlock it. Boom, unlock it, give it to her. The person had to have woken up. Okay, they were drinking, they were sleeping heavily, they fell back to sleep. Where were these people asleep? What was going on? It's 2 rooms, so I imagine it was probably 2 and 2, 2 people per room. So whoever she gave the phone to, she had to go walk into a room. How long would that have taken? Did they time it? Okay, she went out to the balcony to speak. It took 30 seconds to get there. Then she hung up at 12:44, 30 seconds. Handed back the phone, another 5 seconds. Walked back another 30 seconds. It's 12:45 with odd seconds to go. Then, like, she just, like, leaped over or what? No specifics. No specifics. No specifics. No specifics of the layout. Attorney Tony Busby says that the place was pretty small, that it is very hard to get lost in there. It is very hard to not detect the fact that somebody wasn't in the apartment. That, to me, is perplexing. It's suspicious. It's suspicious that it took them to 12:15 the next day to report her missing. At that age, I had plenty of sleepovers and partying and going places with people. And hell, we woke up and we expected everybody to be there. So what time did these people wake up to? What was the timeline from them waking up to reporting her missing? And when I'm talking about, this is like when I was in my 20s. This is like early 2001, late 90s. It's not like you had an iPhone that you could just text a bunch of people. Hey, y'all seen her? You wake up A very small apartment, 4 people. Hey, where is this chick? Oh, nah, she went out. Fuck it. Fuck, we went out. You know her phone. They knew her phone's missing because she's borrowing a phone. She ain't got her phone on her, so you can't call her. Hey, where is she? What happened? Or maybe she went out for breakfast. Okay, shit, an hour happened. No explanations. If they were asleep at 12:30, most people sleep 6-7 hours. At 7 something in the morning, that's 6-7 hours. They should have been waking up already. Okay, they were drinking from the day before. Blah blah. Let's give them 10 o'clock, man. You waited 2 whole hours. Extremely suspicious and troubling to me. To not question that timeline, not push us any further, and just come to that conclusion. And not usually, and this is another perplexing thing about this case. Usually, cops are extremely suspicious. Cops don't believe in, me with a correctional background. It's just the truth. It's hard to believe people without evidence. So, yeah, I understand you read the note and what have you, and you're coming to your conclusions, but like, I just find it hard to believe that these people slept to what, to 11, 10 o'clock. Well, girls tend to sleep a lot. They are sleepyheads. But damn, they were asleep at 12:30 according to what police said. And shit, they had to have been up by 9. Hey, what's her name? Where is she? Her shit's there. So she didn't leave. She didn't go back home. I, the lack of awareness by these people it's troubling. The fact that police didn't see that troubling. I think that's where the whole doubt from the family comes from. The fact that police are not suspicious of anything. Like, they just came to the conclusion, we found a note, we found a note, cool, that's all there is to it. Fuck it. My opinion, we need details. They need to go and find more details. They need to provide us with a timeline. What did these people do from the time they woke up to 12:15? What the fuck happened? What? They're already sobered up. I understand they're hungover. They're this and that. They're not gonna babysit another person. What the fuck happened? From the time when they woke up to the time they call police. Who do they call? Who do they talk to? Attorney Tony Busby says that they told him on a Zoom call that they didn't have the power to confiscate all these people's phones and go through them. And he yelled out, hogwash. I agree. Hogwash. I agree. Like, you got to put your detective hat on. Detective? Like, what the fuck happened? What were you doing from 9 that you woke up to fucking 12? And I am redundant with that. Because it needs answers. Were you asleep when she handed you the phone back? You got up to pee. This chick's not in the bed. You don't wonder? Or she's not in the house? The lack of details. Not interviewing people. Like, why would you dismissing potential witnesses as irrelevant facts to the case? I was on assignment in September, and I left my hotel room to get ice, and I could hear people. I can overhear people, which is the same layout. Hotels and big apartments, it's the same layout. There's a long hallway, and I could hear people as I walked to get ice, mingling inside the room, the TV loud, this and that. These other people, I guess they weren't arguing. They were playing like Uno or something. I could hear them. And that's just me walking down the hallway. I mean, the apartments, like I said, just the fact that they don't give you the layout is perplexing to me. Because if the apartment was located in the center and you have neighbors, hey, I'm talking to all those people. What did you hear, man? Did you remember I was asleep? Okay, sir, thank you very much. What canvassing did they do? And then the defensive posture. Oh no, we understand it's grief and this and that. They don't want to replace the detective. And I understand you're not going to have the family run to the police department for you. I get that 100%. But you know what? You're doubting our case. That's fine and dandy. Hey, Texas Rangers, come on. Come look through all this. In the end of the day, we're seeking the truth. We want to know what happened to this girl. Come on. Why be so defensive? Lastly, reports came out and they debunked them. Reports, I think this was like 2 days ago, that a suspect was going to be named, and the police debunked that, and they're stating they're doubling down on their situation. On their, not their situation, but their findings. But yet, they still don't provide any details about the pressing, troubling issues within the case. They don't explain themselves as to why a lot of people were not interviewed. They don't. So you open a door to all these wild and crazy and spin ideas as to what could happen to her. Me speculating, something happened there. I'm not going to sit there and speculate on specifics. Something happened there. Who knows? It might have been an accident. It might have been an accident. They were fighting. Somebody fell over. And they're scared to come out and say the truth, or they feel they can get away with it. Who knows? But there's a lot of things unexplained. But you'll be the judge of that. You can come to whatever conclusion. Hopefully the truth comes out for her family's sake, because to live with this cloud hanging over you that your child was taken from you, you can't even make heads or tails of the situation, on top of the grief and everything that's going on with you, that's got to be an extremely difficult thing to endure. But y'all be the judge. Y'all come to conclusions. Y'all leave whatever you think in the description, in the comments. I read all the comments. It's not like we're a huge channel. I would love to hear what people think about it. I'm at a loss for words of this whole case. As I said, hopefully the truth comes out. But thank you for tuning in. Like, subscribe, share, and I'll catch you in the next one.